Jose at that time only had 90,000 people, and it was all spread out, a lot of canneries and fruit trees and a whole lot of people that weren't black. And so as a result of that, we went into his office and we said, well, where are we going to live?
In 1955, the San Jose State Athletic Department was just beginning to recruit and integrate African American students. Many who would go on to become world-class athletes were the first in their families to attend college. But the United States was still a largely segregated nation, and black students struggled to find places to live. There were no dorms or integrated housing units available when they arrived.
So Benny found the house on 5th Street, 101 North 5th Street, in a huge, nice mansion. And I said, that's where we began. And so guys started coming in, and I started to place them in different rooms. And you know, when they were coming in from different places, and the word got out that they would have a roof over their head.
We got into the Good Brothers. I began to meet a lot of the people that would become, close associates, my friends and stuff like that. Friends from various parts of the state of California.
That residence served as their base, an academic support center, and multicultural gathering spot. This was unique, especially given the climate of the times. It became known as the Good Brothers House.
Talking to Chuck, I said, Chuck, we had such a good time, and my mom thought the guys were good brothers. A light went off. Light bulb moment, as some people would say. Chuck Alexander took that and ran with it. The Good Brothers had their name. They were established. That was in 1955, 56. That year was my first year at San Jose State, and that's when the Good Brothers probably got their name.
And individuals made for a great American success story. While being a very small minority of the San Jose State student body, they stood up and supported each other whenever challenged. They found ways to compete, study, socialize, mentor, and achieve the ultimate goal, to graduate.
You know, because nobody around was really opening up doors to rent. And that was the key, you know, when you got somebody to say, hey, and you know, and the beauty of it, we're 2 blocks from the college. You need no car, no bicycles, we could walk.
I studied with some of them. I had classes with George Cobbs and I think Hal Boutte in one of my English classes. That was a new experience for me because, again, in high school I was the only person of color. So I enjoyed even having classes with some of the guys, the Good Brothers, at that time. Other than social, academic, off-campus tours we took, I remember having a wonderful time with all of them.
We would pitch in each week and have a community kitchen. So our woman board was taken care of. The majority of the first Good Brothers were track and football athletes, but some followed with some legitimate students and some guys who had been in the military and had a chance to mature and find themselves and decided that they needed to go to college to pursue their goals in life.
So Bud contacted Chuck Alexander, and Chuck had a house with, at that time he had about 18 or 19 athletes, but they were student athletes. They weren't just athletes. We didn't get to the college to play football or run track. We went there to get an education.
Later on, I was there for 3 years. I learned a lot from the Good Brothers in terms of camaraderie, how you really stay together. You stay focused on what your goals are. You put your ego aside, leave it out on the front porch or wherever, and you go about your business, especially if you're a professional.
I was just absolutely amazed. I mean, they had a house that had 2 stories and a full basement. And these guys were, for the most part, athletes. There were a few non-athletes there. But the head man was Chuck Alexander. And he came and he greeted us like we were his equal.
Say
Because I
that
came
again.
down for a visit during the, what do you call that weekend? Homecoming weekend. And afterwards they had a party there at the Good Brothers, and I got a chance to see them in action.
San Jose had curriculum that I was interested in. And I was told there was this group called Good Brothers, and they had moved into the Good Brothers house on 5th and St. John, I believe it was. And so it was just a smooth transition from Oakland to San Jose for me. You know, it turned out to be an experience that's meant something from the day I entered there until now.
All the different careers of people that have gone through that place. And the house itself, there was a party, but there was a commitment to study. And not only that, it was more brotherhood.
I don't know, it seemed like one a week they'd have parties. And I loved to dance. I think that was probably, yeah, my all-time favorite thing to do. So the first time I went over there, I went with her, you know, and had a great evening of just dancing the night away. We had curfews, of course, back then.
I began to live at 101 for a number of reasons. One, for the fraternity. For the fraternity of the Good Brothers. And the lessons that I learned from them in terms of how to treat people.
The Good Brothers were just a place for us to feel wanted here at the institution. It made us feel like we were part of the institution. We were thankful that we had an opportunity to be here and to go to school. And to, most of us didn't have a lot of money, but we used what we could. In fact, I was a cook for a while, and if you can imagine that, that's really something else. I probably almost killed people, but they stayed alive for some reason. And so that was basically what it is. I had a little job, I worked, and I just made sure I had a chance to make some money and also graduate from school. And I did.
My experience with the Good Brothers is really one of the prized, how do I want to say this? One of the prized time in my life. I've always said that to anybody that would listen that the 2.5 most fun-filled years of my life was when I was a student at San Jose State. I mean, we really had a great time. We formed bonds and great friendships that lasted a lifetime.
They kind of felt they needed to take care of me, right? And so I was blessed in that.
The guys that came to San Jose State met the Good Brothers, and that's why they stayed. Because San Francisco State didn't have that, Stanford didn't have that, none of them. UCLA, USC, nobody had that.
Riding, going to the track meets and seeing all of the wins, that part was really exciting. But mostly I remember, in addition to that, just being with a group of people that were really friends, and we've been friends all of these years. We get together as much as we can, not so much now, we're all in our 70s, but to get together, and those friendships have lasted all of this time. We put our money together when we needed a pizza or Cokes or soda. We had a good time together after the track meets, and we still try to stay in touch and do that now. They're just long time memories that where we went through, we went to our classes every day and studied and laughed a lot together, and that's what I really remember, and the friendships.
It was a very nice house, by the way. and he had a lot of us guys there, and really nice kind of guys. And I actually basically was involved in some introduction to some real interesting people in the future, because one of the persons who had come down here with me was a guy named Huey Newton, and he was the brother of the one person that I have here, and that is that person of Melvin Newton. And Melvin Newton was my roommate. We had gone to Oakland Junior College together, and in that process, while we were going to that college, we both decided we were going to come down to San Jose. Well, I decided I was going to come down, and he decided he would come with me. And so that being the case, the end result, we both wound up here, and we got tied into Charles, Chuck is what we call him, because the coach there at the school indicated that this was a place where I could stay. And so he had gotten me this location, and I basically gave it to Melvin. So we wound up staying at good old Good Brothers home.
It was an inspiration. I mean, like somebody I know or didn't know but knew of as a group, you know, made it through. They made it through, and that they had a place, a base, you know, how do you do that if you don't have something that you can emerge from, you know, that's gonna be there?
What I remember the most is that it opened up a door for social life for young black women who really didn't have a great deal of or any kind of social life for myself, speaking for myself, because there just weren't any young black men around.
Most of the house worked in the canneries, and so we worked at night. All of us always worked all night, and so we slept during the day, and then with the guys that could cook, like Benny Walker and Chuck, you know, it was kind of funny because we'd all be resting and we knew they would be in there cooking, and as soon as it got quiet in the house, you better run upstairs because the food was ready.
We're going to the football games, and I especially remember going up to Stanford. I loved the Stanford campus when San Jose played Stanford. And then after the games, we meet at the Good Brothers house on 101 North 5th. And the parties were so good. I do remember the parties, and I remember they brought people from all over, from Berkeley. The guys came down from Berkeley, from San Jose Community College. There were people from all over came to those Good Brother parties, and I really remember that because we didn't have big parties like that when I was in high school at all.
It was just fun to be around the Good Brothers because it gave us an opportunity to just talk to each other, study together, go to movies together, do some crazy stuff together, play basketball together, all kinds of things like that. And so that really gave us some free time, when we had free time, to do some things that were free and enjoy one another.
Sacrifice of a discipline. Both of the guys went there, came from very humble backgrounds where they had to work and go to school, and I had to do the same thing. So I was working and boxing and going to school at the same time.
My cousin Male, Robert Garrett, was there, but only for a short time. So at San Jose State, I was thrilled. Black women, black men, I was thrilled. We had a good time. What I remember about the Good Brothers, I met Chuck Alexander, Mel Powell, and others. And Mel used to talk about what a good cook he was. He was an excellent cook. So we jokingly said, all right, fix a meal for us. My mom and dad agreed. Why not? Come to the house, 372 Jerome Street. Mel fixed a wonderful spaghetti dinner with all the fixings. Ray Goodwin was there, Joe Barrington, Charlie Harley, Ida Love, Chuck Alexander, my brother, my mother, my father, my sister. We had a good time.
And I secured a job as hashing in a sorority, Delta Zeta. And in that way, all the food was left over. I got to bring home to the house.
as other guys had hashed. So the hashing was real beneficial for all of us because we would all pool in and bring food home. Yeah, and that was, so we had food to eat.
And being around Otis, and Otis could tell you, I was trying to teach him Spanish. Of course, it wasn't the good Spanish, it was the really funny and how to how you can really communicate with other Mexicans. So it was, as I said, it was really a good time.
And I enjoyed my whole time down here because the people I met were just wonderful. The people who ran track and field that I was involved with, they were just great guys. And basically speaking, all sort of worked with one another on seeing how we got along and how we got through school and what we were going to do afterwards.
Bob Bronson basically is the guy who really looked out for athletes. He cared more than you just being an athlete. He wanted you to graduate, get your degree, and go on and do whatever you wanted to do. So consequently, guys like O'Neal Kateri became city councilman in Oakland, Judge Jimmy Long, all these people became productive citizens.
Bob Bronson arrived at San Jose State in 1937, determined to make a difference. In the 7 decades since, few Spartans have left a larger legacy. His biggest impact came in 1955 when he recruited African American players. It was not a popular decision at the time, but one that friends say Bronson was driven to because he knew it was right. He had a vision for what you could be in 10, 20 years, and not just what you could do for 4 years, and then you were gone.
Went to Bud, and we said, well, here we are. And Bud was very creative. Bud had contacts with the whole city of San Jose. San Jose at the time only had 90,000 people. And it was all spread out, a lot of canneries and fruit trees and a whole lot of people that weren't black. And so as a result of that, we went into his office and we said, well, where are we going to live? Well, at that time, they had, which they probably still do now, redlining, where you could only, African Americans only could live in certain places. And so housing was a problem, particularly for anybody that was African American. So what he said was, he looked through his card catalog and he said, you can get a place on 5th and St. John. And this house, okay, it was a Victorian house. And so he said, well, you can go over there. Well, we didn't know how we were going to eat. We didn't know where we were going, and no one showed us how to get there. But he said it's 2 blocks up, and you just go down there, and then you go ask for a man named Chuck Alexander, who I didn't know from Adam.
Bud Winter propelled San Jose State to the pinnacle of track and field during the mid-1950s. He did this as he learned how to develop a world-class track program on meager resources, how to organize a track team, and how to build interpersonal relationships. During that time, segregation was the norm, and housing was scarce for African Americans in San Jose. To help remedy this situation, Coach Winter developed a unique bond with Chuck Alexander and steered countless athletes to the Good Brothers house just off campus. It became a dorm and a safe haven to countless athletes and non-athletes for years to come.
Earth person, even though he was a high professional person, he wasn't arrogant. He was really interested in our well-being. He was moving forward. He was ahead of the game. Helping the minorities out. He helped us get in the place, and he also helped us, adapt to the college life. And so that was the thing. And so he kind of, I know he kind of took me under his arm like one of his sons, And so he really made a difference there.
Bill Walsh, he was really, he was the guy that was always there, and and which is why he was such a successful coach, because he related to the black athlete really well.
Long before he became the legendary Super Bowl coach, Bill Walsh was a graduate assistant on Bob Bronson's 1956 Spartan football staff. It was a daunting time, a time of segregation, a time to rise above. Many who knew him back then say that he was a man of character with an abiding respect for his athletes, not just as football players, but as student athletes. He never talked down to anyone and showed respect to all people, athletes and non-athletes alike.
Really progressive and really a beautiful person, because he was aware of all of that. So because of that, he had something. Not the other coaches were okay. The majority of the guys were basically football players. Probably about, when I say football players, we probably had about 10 guys, maybe 12. And on the track team, we had maybe 8 or 9. It wasn't a big number there. It was less, around 20 of us. So it was no big deal. But then the living conditions were bad.
The fall of 1956, I went up to San Jose. And I met with Bud Winter, and he accepted me, and he gave me a place to live. And ironically, the first place he took me to was 101 North 5th Street, which later became the Good Brothers house. In that house, I was a high jumper at the time.
Old school.
Yes, experience for me, coming up here as a young man, never being away from home, and being on my own and learning to live on my own, and getting the help and assistance from everyone I met in the house. I know, with camaraderie, we was a fraternity without being a Greek fraternity. We were fraternal, and it meant a lot to me. And it always has, it always will.
I kept with me throughout my whole life, even today, the lesson. I went on after I left San Jose State. I became an Army officer, and their discipline and their urge to learn assisted me to earn a commission in the United States Army. I was what they called a 90-day wonder. What that meant at that time was, rather than taking ROTC or going to the military academy, you went to Fort Benning, Georgia, and you enlisted, and you went through this program where they made you an officer in 90 days. And I often chuckle at that, because if they made me an officer in 90 days, it sure was a wonder. And I went on to law school at Howard University. And I went there because I had an interest, not in money, but in trying to use whatever skills and talent to help someone other than myself. And I did that because that was the lesson of the Good Brothers that I learned in San Jose.
To sum it up, the Good Brothers are unique in history. We came at a time when we had to come together. If we didn't come together, there was no one else there for us. And so that made the unit that we call the Good Brothers.
We looked out for each other. We were a support system for one another, and I think that was probably the greatest thing that transpired as a result of our experience at San Jose State.
So when I look at the Good Brothers, that's kind of like, it's kind of like in a way, like a fraternity. It's like a family. And all these years, those of us that are still alive, we still, honor each other. And, like Chuck and I have been friends, I think, forever. And I never thought I would live in the city of San Jose because I really didn't like this place because I was a Southern Californian. But due to circumstances, I've become, a successful teacher and a coach, and I've received 5,000 awards from different people. I don't know why, but they look at things that you've done, and so my roots always go back to the Good Brothers.
A deal of gratitude to the Good Brothers in that not only did they protect me, but they also guided me to a better life, which I now have. So I can certainly say that my life and its accomplishments really started at the Good Brothers house.
A bit depressing, because we tried to carry that whole Good Brothers tradition on. See, it should continue. That whole attitude about, there's a lot of things bigger than you. Okay, see, that's the impression that I want to leave. So it's not about you all the time as an individual, it's about the whole group. Because I believe that everything that we gain and that we treasure in life, really, the telephone, electricity, cars, all of those things came from basically a team effort. It did not come from just one individual, even though that individual may be out front. But I've done lots of research, and I think that all the things we treasure and value comes from team effort. A team effort. So if I could leave one thing to this next generation, that's what I'd like to leave.
Some of them have different abilities. Benny Walker, I forgot his name. I think it was Benny. Benny could cook, so he had that talent, and some of the others had academic talent. Others were athletes. But by becoming a part of the group, you became a part of the family, and you gained what they had.
For what can be in terms of education and your commitment to it. Because I kept hearing, well, they all graduated. Well, some became a teacher, some was the top. So it was an inspiration. I mean, like somebody I know or didn't know but knew of as a group, made it through. They made it through, and that they had a place, a base, to, how do you do that if you don't have something that you can emerge from, that's gonna be there. And those guys, that's not, I know the university didn't help. Look, I know they did that. They did that. So yeah, that makes me very, very proud. That's at San Jose State. At San Jose State, they did that.
The Good Brothers are unique in history. We came at a time when we had to come together. If we didn't come together, there was no one else there for us. And so that made the unit that we call the Good Brothers.
That made it where the Good Brothers name began to spread. And everybody came there and they said, hey man, these are good brothers. And because they could see on the brotherhood. And I think that's what really, and we all worked together and we all, achieved, and we did our best in what sports we were in. But it also began to put the spotlight on San Jose State, how good a lot of us were. And they, they began to see that it was not only the athletics, but the academics, and then the ability to not disrupt the educational system.
I really, really appreciated what the Good Brothers has done for me. And today I am a storyteller, and I think I can trace that storytelling seed that was planted in me by sitting in the basement, hearing those brothers tell some of those wonderful tales. Thank you, good brothers. I will always be indebted to you. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that I am a good brother.
The friendships and bonds that were first found with the Good Brothers have lasted a lifetime. They've stuck together through thick and thin, sharing and caring and remaining as close as families can be. Along the way, they went on to become doctors, lawyers, judges, educators, engineers, entrepreneurs, coaches, counselors, ambassadors, architects, social workers, scientists, law enforcement officers, ministers, and military officers. Through it all, they remained humble in their successes and stayed true to their values, the values of loyalty, honesty, integrity, and dignity, the everlasting values of the Good Brothers.